What's going on, guys? My name is Chase Ross, and today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to flare whip. Let's jump right into today's video. So today I'm going to be showing you guys how to flare whip. If you guys are new to my channel, my name is Chase and I make tons of tutorials just like this video where I'm going to be breaking down the trick step by step to make sure you guys know every little trick and little tweak to learning these tricks the best way possible. But before we dive right into step number one, let's get a couple things straight. You need to wear a helmet. This trick is serious, and if you land upside down, you're going to want to have your helmet on. Preferably knee pads as well, and maybe a butt pad or some shin guards to make sure that whip of the deck doesn't come in and chop your ankles off. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about where we're going to be trying this trick. So we're going to be trying this trick over here on my 5-foot quarter pipe. So it's a perfect spot to try it. You don't really want to try your first flare whip on anything smaller than a 4-foot ramp. That'll just give you enough boost, enough height to actually go about getting your flare whip out of the way. But now, let's jump right into step number one. Now that we got our scooter, we're going to dive right into step number one. So before we even get close to trying our first flare whip on a quarter pipe, let's go over the basics. So now for step one, we want to focus on what we're going to be doing while actually trying a flare whip. So if you have not already learned flares, I would first off highly recommend learning flares. You guys can click the card right above and go watch my how to flare tutorial. There's lots of tips in there that'll teach you guys how to flare in no time. But now that you got that out of the way, let's get into step number one. So for starters, we're going to be working on just the whip of the flare whip. So before you actually try a flare whip, let's go and just practice getting that flick down. So what we're going to do right here, we're going to kind of like picture we're going up to the quarter pipe right here. We're going up to the quarter pipe. We're going to give a little bit of a flick and then tuck. So unlike a normal flare where you go straight up and you curl and you look for the quarter pipe and lean over the entire time and spot your landing, flare whips are a little different. You're going to go up. You're going to still lean back the same way. But mid-flip, as you guys know, you're going to be sending this tail whip in the trick. So what you have to do while you're going right here is you're going to have to look at your deck and then tuck real fast. So for starters, what we're going to do right here is we're going to practice just this motion of leaning back, kicking the whip, and tucking, just so our body can have the mental memory of learning how to flare whip. So we're going to do this a couple times. Whip, tuck. We're going to do this a couple more times. Whip, tuck. And now let's do a couple where we're not even looking at the deck, because we want to be able to memorize where the deck's going to be while we're practicing this trick. So whip, tuck, and continue that flare. Whip, tuck, continue that flare. Now if we were doing it on a quarter pipe, we'd be going up here, whip, and then tucking as if we were actually pulling the flare. Now at first this might make you guys like a little disoriented, like, oh man, I'm used to holding onto my scooter the entire time while actually sending my flares, and that's okay. These later steps in this video will show you guys how to get over that fear of like letting go of your whip and knocking into the actual flare whip. But now let's jump into step number two. Step number two is going to be focusing on your footwork. So we're going to really concentrate on what your feet are doing while you're mid-flare. So if you guys have seen my how to tail whip video, we talk a lot about catching your whip. Catching whips are, I'd say, probably the most important trick in scootering, just learning how to catch your whip before actually landing your trick and then moving on. So what we're going to be focused on with the flare whip is your flick and catch mid-air. So when you're going up and you're doing the flare whip, you want to make sure that you're flicking with your back foot, and while in the air, you're going to be guiding it around with your front foot, and as you come back down and your whip's coming around, you're going to catch, just like a normal tail whip. It's really the same thing, but you're just upside down while this is happening. So it's a little bit confusing to your head to be like, whoa, what's going on? We're upside down and doing a whip. So again, we're going to be going up, kicking with our back foot, guiding while we're flipping with our front foot. While we're still upside down, we're going to be catching with our back foot, putting our front foot back on, and at the same time, while we're doing this, we're going to be curling back in and tucking to finish the flare off right. Now that we know what our feet are going to be doing, let's move on to step number three, which is going to be focusing on what our hands are going to be doing. So when it comes to doing the whip on the quarter pipe, you got to make sure that you keep your whip as close to your body as possible. This is going to help you stay centered and stay on axis while actually doing the flare whip. So when you're going up the quarter pipe right here, sending the whip, just like we talked about with the feet, you're kicking it around, guiding it with your front foot, and catching it. Your hands are going to be doing the normal circle motion that they always do while doing a normal tail whip. And just like with a normal tail whip, you want to keep it under your body and close to you. You don't want to be doing some kind of super crazy whip flare with there. You want to keep it close to your body and keep it contained. Just like with any trick, with like including a whip, you want to keep it close to your body. That's going to be the key to actually getting the trick in there. But now, let's move on to step number 4. Moving on to step number 4. This one's gonna sound weird, but what I want you guys to do is send a couple flares where you just think about sending a flare whip. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna drop in with a normal amount of speed, you're gonna come up, do a normal flare, and while you're mid-flare, think about sending the whip. As long as you guys can get yourself mentally prepared and know when you're gonna send the whip, when it actually comes to sending the whip, it's not gonna be as scary. So let's run through this real quick. We're gonna drop in, get some normal speed, come up to the quarter pipe, send a flare. Right now I'm thinking, hey, I'm gonna send the whip, and then I'm spotting my landing, and then I'm gonna roll away just like a normal flare. Go for the flare, think about the whip, spot the landing, and then good. I want you guys to do this step a couple times, maybe even all the way up to 10 times to make sure that you're mentally prepared to send the whip and the flare. Now, let's combine all these steps together and jump right in to the 5th step. I'm hyped. We're on the very last step, which means you guys are one step closer to learning how to flare whip. So for step number 5, we're gonna be focusing on what you're gonna do after you've actually sent the flare with the whip in there. What are you gonna do next? You're gonna be spotting your landing. So now let's talk about what's gonna happen when you spot your landing. So a flare whip is slightly different than a normal flare. With a normal flare, you're gonna have your head cocked back the entire time, looking for that landing. But now with a flare whip, you're gonna be actually looking for the deck. So when you go up, you're gonna keep your head inward like this, then flick it back. So there's a little pause in there for a second. For now, for a lot of people, this throws a lot of people off. So what we're gonna focus on right now is what's gonna happen when you send the whip, you catch the whip, then you're gonna tuck. That's the most important thing, is you gotta continue to tuck the flare or else it's not gonna come around right. So we've come up here, we've sent the whip, we're leaning back, we've caught the whip. Now we're gonna lean back, tuck, spot the landing, and then roll back down the ramp just like a normal flare. After you get the whip out of the way, it turns into a normal flare. So I want you guys to remember that. Once you've sent the whip, it turns into a normal flare. So a couple things you guys can focus on while doing this trick, a couple tips I want to add in are, if you're trying it on a big quarter pipe like this, pop less but rotate more than a normal flare. So picture you're doing a normal flare, you're gonna go up the ramp with a little bit more rotation, but you don't want to pop out or else you're gonna land flat. So what I would recommend doing is rolling up the ramp, rotating a little faster, and absorbing the coping a little bit. That way you don't actually pop out and land flat. Now if you're trying on a 3-foot quarter pipe, something like this over here, you're gonna do the exact opposite. You're gonna pop out twice as hard and rotate twice as hard. So when it comes to hitting the coping, you're gonna bonk off, send the whip a little bit faster than normal, catch, tuck back in, and roll away just like a normal fast flare on a smaller quarter pipe. But that right there is going to be all the steps that you guys need to learn flare whips. I'm going to show you guys a couple more, slow-mo them down, break down the steps so you guys can get a full understanding of what this trick looks like. This seems like a perfect time to show you guys what to do if the flare whip goes bad. Oh no. Okay, just like that. My flare whip went bad. I was off-centered and the flare just wasn't coming around right. A super simple way to do this and save yourself from getting busted is to keep your foot off the scooter. So as you just saw, I went up, did the flare whip, and as I was coming down, I kept my front foot off, set it on the ground right here, made sure I had enough time to come back around, and then rode straight as if I landed. That's gonna be a huge step to get over and learn while learning flare whips, because if the flare whip is ever not going right, you know you have the backup plan of keeping your front foot off, waiting to catch yourself, rotate yourself the rest of the way, and then ride away as if you landed it. That right there is gonna do it for today's video. I hope you guys are now one step closer to landing your very first flare whip. Or better yet, if you guys have already landed your first flare whip, shoot me a DM right here on Instagram. I would love to see it and see what you guys got. I'd love to also repost it on my story and give you guys a shout out for watching my video, and then of course sending the trick and landing it. That'd be sick. But that's gonna do it for today's video. If you guys like this video or found it useful at all, please drop a like below. I put a lot of work into these videos to make them the best I can and give the best tips I can to show you guys how to become a better scooter rider. I love making these for you guys, and I love coaching. So if you guys like these videos, make sure to give me a big old thumbs up. And while you guys are down there, go down in the comments and let me know what tricks you guys want to see next. I'll make another video on the most picked trick. But until the next video, I'll see you guys later. Peace.